Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the War Room, which is our interview series as part of the Clonestar podcast. I am your host, Seán Ferrick, and joining me is the most badass first officer of them all, the once Major, then Colonel, Kira Nerys, Nana Visitor herself. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you doing, Seán?
I'm a little starstruck, so I'm very
Oh.
good. I have there's so much I want to ask you, but first of all, how did it feel becoming a cartoon?
You know what? It's thrilling. And I was so glad with how they chose to draw her. It was a good era, a good time. And I thought that well, I was laughing along with everybody else. The opening shot of the station, that got me. That got me as much as watching Galaxy Quest did when the red shirt goes, wait a minute, I don't have a last name. I'm the one who's going to die. It was like, it's so truthful. It's so true. Yes, you are.
Oh, it was so good. Like we from the trailer dropping, and we see the station in the trailer. We were just so excited, but of course we had no idea until the episode aired that you were back. So if you heard like some sort of weird screaming in the distance, this was people like me who were like, "Oh my god!"
It
It
was
was
so hard to keep that secret. It was so hard, but I did it.
you did go. How long between recording to airing? Like how long did you have to sit on that?
I think it was, could it have been something like 6 months? I think it was.
Oh,
It was quite a while. Yeah.
I can barely keep a secret for an hour. So
Yeah,
like,
I know. It's not easy for me either because I don't keep secrets about my own life. It's much clearer. I don't have to think which lie did I tell. I just always tell the truth. So keeping other people's secrets is an effort for my brain. I'm not used to it.
there was actually you reminded there was a job I had previously with a manager who, of course, I will not name. One of the first bits of advice they ever gave me was keep a notepad, and I said, "Oh, just for taking notes." He says, "No, for keeping track of your lies." Okay,
It's true. It's too hard. It's just not worth it.
it really is.
Yeah.
So like obviously there is an abundance of Star Trek on the air at the moment, and you are now a current performer in Star Trek. But I think we all fell in love with you when you held the wonderful Sid to task by daring to say that you lived in the frontier. What an amazing introduction to a character. Kira Nerys, I think, has been one of the most influential archetypal characters in certainly sci-fi, and just in television as a whole. How does that feel knowing that you are so important to not just Trekkies but people in general?
Well, it took 30 years to have an inkling of that. So over the drip of time, it does change it. It wasn't like she was received like that back in the day. Absolutely not. This was an issue for a lot of people. This was, why are you such a bitch? So it I got used to just going, hey, I had strong feelings about that character. I knew how I felt I needed to play her, and I did it. I just put my nose down and kept in the lane that I thought I needed to be and tried to ignore what was going on, good or bad, in terms of response. But now I have to tell you, I know exactly when it happened. It was at a convention, and a 15-year-old boy came up to me, and it was in the last 5 years, it was probably 5 years ago, and said, I am so in love with your character. A 15-year-old boy. Now, a 15-year-old boy back in the day would have been like, whoa, she's way too much. Now, because of where we have culturally come, he looks at her and goes, yeah, that's a great idea of a woman to me. And that was revelatory. Part of that was streaming. The fact that we were suddenly streaming and people could see an arc to her, and also the it's a more acceptable woman in today than it was 30 years ago, for sure.
I remember obviously watching it on first airing, and there was so many themes that went over my head. Things like, if I look back and like, oh my god, I was that age watching these episodes, like The Darkness and the Light, for example,
Right.
which it always hit hard, that episode. I always knew I really enjoyed it, and as the years went on, it becomes so much more meaningful, and we often discuss the strength of Kira not apologizing to Scylla and Prain. Like, sorry, but, and it's such a statement. How did, like, when you were getting scripts like that, and when you were seeing ideas like that, was there ever a time when you were like, "Oh, we're getting cancelled for this one. There's no way we're going to get this one made."
Mm, you know what? It was Ira recently told me we happened to be sitting on a ship in rough weather at the time together. And he said, I remember the moment Michael Piller came up to me and said, I'm so sorry, but this is not going to be the show. It's going to be Voyager. I'm so sorry. And Ira was thrilled because it meant no one would be watching us. No one would be watching over us and saying, dictating, going, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Her hair, this detail, that storyline, because they were shaping it to be this hit or this big show that they were going to sell. So we were flying under the radar all the time. That didn't mean that I didn't have the feeling the whole time. I come from theater, and a 2 week notice can go up on the board. You're signing into work at half hour, and the show's closing. 2 week notice. You got 2 more weeks of work. So I always felt like I have no idea when this is going to end, and it could end anytime, and it could end just for me at any time. I could get fired. And I lived in that for the 7 years.
That, I mean, as exhilarating as that can be, that must have been stressful as well.
The hardest part of the stress, and people always say, you look so well. And I have a real answer for that. Sleep. Um, we didn't sleep. And they say punch drunk. It really is. I just read a book recently about sleep, and they say that, at if you miss a certain amount of it, a certain amount of hours, you are in a state that is just like intoxication. You are not thinking clearly. You aren't functioning well. And that was the stress that was hardest. We worked, 26 shows a season. Does anyone do that anymore? And the number of hours that we did, it was like a stress test that I don't feel I passed. I was beyond exhausted all the time. So of course, I had two children during the show too, very young. That
Mm.
that complicates things.
I can't imagine having children during that would be stressful at all. You know, and actually, on that, with the hours, the hours that you're doing, I suppose, how often did you actually get to see your family? I mean, we are talking serious hours per day, 5, 6, possibly even 7 days a week.
Renee, but it was 5 days a week, but the hours were such that it became Friday night was early Saturday morning,
Mm.
and then we would start Monday morning. The earliest people would come in probably 4:30 for makeup, 4:30 a.m. So the weekend gets very, very quick. And Rene Aubergenois used to say, we see each other more than we see our own families. And of course, my children spent a lot of time in my trailer at Paramount, sometimes on set. My older son, Buster, really learned what a red light was meant to be. And at 2 years old, if a grip came and started to talk to him, he'd go, red light. And it's like, we're on a red light. That's right. Because God forbid he ever do anything that would stop, the process of the filming. And I couldn't have him there again. So yeah, that's how I saw them.
My goodness. I suppose, on the one hand, it's great to learn these lessons early. On the other hand, I appreciate a new fear of red lights. Just for
We're on a red light.
oh god, oh god, oh god.
That's right.
For example, in this room that I'm in, there's two cats that are they're sleeping now, and I just like, guys, we're recording, okay, you stay where you are. Over the years, so as you mentioned as well, like it's taken kind of 30 years. I mean, I think now we can agree DS9 has become, I think, one of the most beloved iterations of Star Trek. And I know for the longest time, I was the weird kid who was the DS9 fan. It was, TNG was obviously doing really well. Um,
Right.
and sorry about this. I sound like I have some sort of mad flu. I'm sorry about this.
No worries.
But
Is that tea or coffee?
it's tea. It's lemon and ginger
Tea.
tea. Yes.
Oh, very nice.
So,
Good.
and also the Irishness of it all. I kind of I was like, well, I'm going to get a tea anyway, so I
That
get that.
that's what's satisfying me. It's like, yes, he's in Ireland and he's drinking tea. Things are as they should be.
Yeah,
My
there,
cliches are proving correct.
there are some stereotypes that, what? Yeah, they're true. They work
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
And this is coffee, and I'm an American. Yep.
Oh, okay. See, I like sometimes it's nice not to rock the boat, which is a phrase I'm sure was never written on a script in DS9. It was let's rock the boat, let's go wild.
Yes, I think that's right.
Um, I know you've spoken about this in interviews since, but the character being a former freedom fighter, um, you know, when a script comes to you and you're like, great, we're going to talk about this time that you blew up a station, or you shot this person, um, play it as reliving happy memories. Do you go, how does anyone play that as reliving, kind of happy? I'm thinking of episodes like Shakar and, where we deal with former resistance cells. How does that sit on you, at the time and with time gone by? Do you think this was a great idea? This was a terrible idea. We would never get made today. How does that work for you?
Uh, well, first of all, in playing that kind of gray area, it's I think it's an important part of life that things aren't black and white, that there is joy within suffering and suffering within joy, that life doesn't happen in a clear-cut way. I was in New York City during 9/11, and the horror and the way we were, I'm just putting do not disturb, the way the uncertainty of what was going to happen next, that is sometimes lost because we know, well, the two planes and then that was it. We didn't know that at the time, but in that time there was such connection with other people on the street, on in interpersonal relationships, the way people helped each other, how we were devastated together. So I think it's more those moments that you're talking about are about deep connection. And it's, I've seen Marines together, and there's a bond, and it's this weird bond that you go, oh, I'll never be a part of that. And it's because they experienced something no one else will. And it was intense. So I think that's what I was trying to get across in those moments. But yeah, I mean, you could call me a freedom fighter or a terrorist. Would that ever get done? If we thought too much about it or the wrong timing, I'm sure not. If it was right at 9/11, probably not. Um, but the fact that she was a gray character and was allowed to change and grow and um, become someone else than she had been. That was the lesson.
It was an incredible journey. There, from, as I say, those opening scenes where it comes across really clearly. She's not actively trying to disrespect anybody in terms of Starfleet or Cisco or anything, but she's like, "You'll be gone next week, and I don't have time for you right now." And that comes across because we recently did a rewatch there of season 1, and DS9, I think, benefits of having one of the stronger first seasons. It seemed to be a very clear vision going in, which I think sometimes, for various reasons, a lot of shows don't have.
Yeah.
How much lead in time did you get? So, like, say from, oh, did you hear they're going to make a new Star Trek series, to, standing there, telling Avery Brooks to get out of your office? What kind of a turnaround time for you is that?
It wasn't much, and not much preparation either. We had a read through that I remember. I'm not sure Colin was there yet, because he hadn't flown back to LA, and we didn't have Terry Farrell yet because she had yet to be cast. But we had a read through, and then we had a walkthrough of the sets. And that, if you, Sean, if you could have walked through the sets,
I
you would
wouldn't
have
care.
gone, you would have gone, okay, I can, by this afternoon, I'll be ready to play the character you're telling me to, because it's hard not to believe it's like VR, you know, uh, on a huge scale. You are on a space station. You opened the door to the stage and walked maybe 10 feet, and you were in it, and it filled the stage. The promenade filled it, and there was no denying it. Was you could walk for a long time and go through all the little restaurants and even the things that weren't used, and it was a world. It was a world built for you.
That is like, if some people ask, if you had a time machine, what would you do? We'd go back and do this, go back. Nope, I am going back and having a drink in Quarks, and I'll probably check out the Bajoran Temple as well. Try out the rep, because it is I think it's one of the most beautiful looking physical sets. It's one thing that Star Trek does very, very well.
Yeah.
But particularly DS9, because the size of the promenade. I mean, how often did we get a set that large that, is used in almost every episode?
Or would it be again? Because I think they use CGI now, so much more than they did. It was really there. It wasn't like up to 6 feet and then the rest they'll fill in later. It was there. It was soaring up to the ceiling. Quite amazing.
I could just imagine as well, just from walking from one, stage to the next. I mean, it's a bloody endurance test as well. Everyone is doing, you're all getting your steps in every single day, just walking the
Yeah.
length of the promenade and back.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, I know as well that I believe it was in the last couple of years, you have released a book about some of the most inspiring women in Star Trek. Can you talk a
I
bit about that?
wish, I wish it was released. We are finishing it. Our deadline is this June. COVID kept me from speaking to a lot of people that I needed to speak to. I was doing a documentary as well, and just the problems of being able to get the interviews and having them be in person. It was just too much in terms of regulations, because the new shows couldn't take the chance of exposing their actors.
Of course.
So I wasn't allowed on set. So it got very delayed, but oh my God, has this been I'm just about to talk to Roxanne Dawson, who is really hard to get a hold of because she's constantly working
Mm,
as a director. She has been in Ireland for a long time.
of course.
So I'm finally getting to talk to her, but it is such a revelation to me. The book is like teaching me things. I'm the one writing it, but it's this alive thing with all these women's voices, that is really, it's a look back. Of course, it's with our more educated 2023 eyes. But I think it's very useful to remember the cultural bubbles that can be put around us by a decade, by the media, by how things are supposed to be. And to be able to look at that and wonder, what's our cultural bubble now? What will we in 20 years look at and go, ah, oh, we didn't need to be doing that. We didn't need to be, it's it's just a fascinating awareness.
Um, like maybe this sounds like the most obvious question, but what inspired you to write the book in the first place?
I wasn't. I was asked. I would not have done
Oh,
it.
okay.
I would not have thought of it. And when I said yes, I went, now what? And that's what's fascinating, because I have been on this journey of going, okay, wait a minute. What were those decades like? What was going on with women? What was I going through? Wait a minute. What happened to me? Wait a minute. What was normal? And I accepted it back then. So, and it's not about shaming and blaming. It's about, because most of the time, the, the, the I call it a cultural amber, because sometimes I feel like I got stuck in an 80s or a 90s way of thinking, and I'm stuck in this amber. And then some young woman comes along and goes, wait a minute, here's a hammer. Get out of there. Now have this perspective. Now what? What does that paradigm change? If, I'll give you a quick example. I talked to Samantha Cristoforetti, who's an astronaut, a fighter pilot, mother of two children under 5. She speaks 8 languages and was learning a ninth.
What?
Yes. Yes. And she told me that Star Trek helped her get to where she was. So right there, that's like, okay. But the example, and she has lots of reasons why that was so. But what happened is, I said, so you're going up into space in a couple of months. You've got 2 children under 5. Who helps you with them when you're gone? And she's a younger woman than I am. And she said, they're my husband's children too. He's a caretaker when I'm not there. And caught in cultural amber. Wait, children are a woman's responsibility. And if I'm gone, I have to find out who's going to help me. Help me? No, that means it's mine alone. When partners do something, it's not helping, it's sharing the responsibility. So that was like, what? And that amber fell off me, from this remarkable woman giving me that paradigm shift. Those are the kinds of things that happen in the book.
That is so interesting, because it's that simple thing. Well, they're my husband's kids as well. Like, oh yeah, of course, but but why is that in our heads? That is a strange thing to realize. Why is that
Because
unusual
it's
to
an
think?
unconscious bias that it's a woman's job. And we have all accepted that, and we just all live with that. And what that does is put such a strain on women, such a strain and such guilt. I remember I had friends at the time. I was a working woman, and I found help, and I got people to help me with my children. My words, because my thought. Um, but I still felt this enormous guilt, because I had girlfriends who said, I don't know how you can do it. Wow, you're missing your children's lives. Wow, someone else is giving them what they need. That's amazing to me. Wow, good for you. Which, of course, wasn't good for me.
Yeah.
It makes you go, how can I? You can't manage it all.
And even maybe the unconscious judgment in those type of statements as well. It's like, oh, you are missing your children's life. Was
Oh
that
yeah.
necessary to say? Like, because and also you kind of think like, well, don't you think I know that I'm working a lot? Don't you think that I know I don't get to see them enough? Um, and yes, that idea of maybe it's the almost the side glance of, oh, are you going to quit this year and go back to being a mother? It's like you can do both.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And it's undeniably hard to do both, but the judgment comes from this unconscious bias that it is a woman's responsibility solely and a man can't do it. Well, that's just not true.
Not exactly, not at all.
Right.
And if you don't mind me asking, obviously yourself and Sid, you have Django. And how was that when obviously you're both working crazy hours, because then when we discussed it, well, these also my husband's children as well, is there a, oh God, how do we, okay, now how do we do this?
Well, don't forget, I was in cultural amber. I completely took it on as mine alone to do. I absolutely didn't expect anyone to do anything other than help me out. So my expectations were very low. So there weren't those conversations with Sid at all. I didn't initiate them. It, conversations that with my husband of 20 years, Matthew, now, I do have. The minute Samantha left my house, I was like, wait a minute, Matthew, you don't help me in the kitchen. You don't help me. We both put in time to clean our kitchen. And this is why we've been married for 20 years. He's like, oh, wow. Okay. I get that. That's wild.
It is. It's funny sometimes when there's that wide open thing of, oh yeah, a partnership means we're partners. Huh? How strange. No, the clue's in the title. This is one of the great things of Trek now is just how female characters are celebrated. They are leading a lot of the shows at the moment. Obviously, we have Sonequa Martin Green leading Discovery. We have Tawny Newsome on Lower Decks.
Love those girls.
They
Love
are.
those women. Love those forces. I say girls because I'm 65, but oh my God, both of those women, I expect to be content creators. I really do. They're going to be forces.
Absolutely, like 100%. Even I think anyone who is within a half mile of Tawny Newsome gets just its injection of energy, because she just puts so much of that out there, to the point where I'm just like, I really hope someone's looking after her with a coffee or something, because if she crashes, you know. And then Sonequa Martin Green, of course, incredibly inspiring. And it is not to say that Star Trek hasn't always had incredible female characters. Of course it has. But it feels like something that somewhere along the way they went, I think we should be doing more. It kind of feels like that. I think DS9 did very well in terms of
I
that.
agree. I agree. That was a huge step forward. And I'm watching Voyager now, and I'm so impressed with the women of Voyager. It was yet another step, just as it should be. I feel like each show has stood on the shoulders of the show before and reached just a little bit higher for everybody. And also, what I love is the way these women are, these young women are with other women. I grew up in a time where it was very competitive and women were, kind of put against each other. And there wasn't enough at the table. There was one spot for a woman, and she better be a sexy woman. And you fought for that spot. And they are so giving and open and loving with each other. I mean, I saw the way the cast of Discovery is with each other. It's so different. It's such an improvement.
that's something that I think, particularly the documentary "What We Left Behind," which was an absolute gift to Niners like me. You're just like, oh my god, this is amazing! This is amazing. I think what we got from that was, when we look at, say, interviews with the Next Generation crew, it seems like they were all linked by the hip, and everyone was laughing and joking, and you kind of wonder, how did anyone get any work done on that show? And then when it came to Deep Space Nine, at the time, it was a much more I'm going to use the word professional, which is not to say that Next Generation wasn't done professional, but to say it was a much more, we are here to do a job. And that, so in that, was there the camaraderie that seems to just exude from all of the DS9 cast at the moment? Was that there during filming?
I don't think it was. I don't think it was like Next Gen. The show itself, the subject matter was difficult. The hours were difficult. We had children. Avery Brooks was flying home to New Jersey every weekend to be with his children because he didn't want to upset their schooling. So, our noses were to the grindstone. We still hung out together, but where the relationships really formed was after going to Europe at conventions or here to conventions, meeting for dinner. And that, one of my favorite things right now in my whole year is going on the cruise ship, the Star Trek cruise ship, because it's like, take all your best friends and put them on a ship with people that right away are receptive to being new friends. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's so fun. It's so wonderful. But yeah, I talk to everybody weekly, I'd say. Harder to get in touch with Sid. I talked to Terry and Michael Dorn and Armin and Andy Robinson way more than I talked to Sid, because he's in Thailand working, or at the bizarre places in the world filming. He never stops. But we do manage to connect once in a while, and I love Sid. I'm so happy he's in my life.
That is beautiful as well, because like on screen, of course, you were fantastic together. I think because you were so different in terms of characters, it was always so funny to see when you had a Kira and a Bashir episode, or see, you're kind of like, on the same show, how could you have two such different characters and yet they're so funny? And then of course I think it's fair to say you grew close in personal life as well. I think that's a fair thing to say. And then jumping forward to the apocalypse times, the at home together, the video play on YouTube was so much fun as well, with Andy as well. We had Armin in there, Sirach. Actually, funny that you mentioned Andy. I just have to show you my T-shirt at the moment.
Yes. That's a good one. I love it.
I love this one. And it's been selfishly, as a fan, it's been a joy to see more of the DS9 cast just together, be it interviews, be it YouTube, be it other projects. It's been great. We are now getting what all the TNG fans had, something like, 10, 15 years ago. And I'm thinking, like,
yes,
it's about time.
Yes, yes. It's interesting. I remember seeing on Twitter at the beginning of the at the beginning of the pandemic, someone said, DS9 is trending. Why?
Like, I'm just imagining, like, I mean, I understand the question, but did you have to phrase it that way?
Yeah.
Of course, anytime we see DS9 trending, we're like, we're finally getting HD. We're finally getting the remaster.
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
it will happen. One of these days, it will happen. And, because again, it looks so good anyway. Let's see it as
Anyway,
good as it can be.
yeah, it would be remarkable.
Hmm. Um, to go back actually just slightly, so of course you're mentioning Voyager there and this cultural amber. I know Kate Mulgrew, for example, has spoken about the first year was a bit difficult in terms of she couldn't turn around for someone cutting her hair, for someone making sure that this scene was there, and although it didn't happen as often, Kira goes through, I think, probably more physical appearance changes, I think, than nearly any other character. Okay, Dax went through a fairly large physical change there between season 6 and 7, but
Yes,
yeah,
a body change.
that was a kind of
Yes.
okay, Dax looks different. But did you feel that there was that sort of scrutiny from, I'm going to say, the male gaze?
Yes, the male gaze was important. There's no doubt that had to be satisfied. And I I was used to that. That was part of being an actor at the time, and probably and still is. And it was like, no, I've got to fulfill these things, but also do it in heels. And you know, um, I loved the first season where I was wearing corduroy and flat boots. I loved it. I literally, um, I read somewhere and I can't remember where it was, but if you think about it, the way women make their eyes wide and big
Mm.
and wear heels, they make themselves look like prey. Because when you think of it, deer and anything that is prey has big eyes, close, wide set eyes, so that they can see who's chasing them.
Oh,
And
wow.
they have hooves. And we give ourselves hooves and wide eyes. And it's a way of saying, yes, you can catch me. I mean, when you break it down, that's really true. So I loved not being prey. I loved that I could run and jump and do whatever I wanted. And I understood when they said, we got to, we've got to soften you. We've got to, in parentheses, appeal to the male gaze. So I went, yeah, okay. So I did. I suggested it myself. I said, put me in heels. I won't be able to walk. They said I walked like John Wayne on the promenade, and that I needed to, walk differently. I said, I won't be able to do that if you put me in heels. So that's what to do. And I mourned my freedom. I mourned that that had to be true. But I also said to myself, okay, if I can be this full spectrum woman dressed like this, I can do it dressed any way, whatever they do to me. They can put anything on my face or my hair. What does it matter? Don't let that be the constraint. Don't put yourself in the box just because, these things are culturally necessary at the time.
There was I never got the impression with Kira that she was being openly portrayed as, oh, we'll give her the plunging neckline, we'll appeal to the 18 to 25-year-old boys who are watching. So even though, yes, there was this change in the appearance, and there was the suits might have gotten a little tighter as years went on. um the
That could have been my fault too. A little weight gain,
uh,
childbirth.
I maintain there's no such thing as weight gain. There's just clothes shrinkage. That's
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 right.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what it was.
yeah. Um,
No, but of course it was. It was now I was in a skin tight suit and everybody else was in a nice Starfleet uniform.
mm,
Um, yeah, I felt that. I definitely felt that and chose to go anyway. Here I am, same species, same experience as as an entity, here I go.
And as well, like, it's funny when you think of, like, so we discussed obviously season 5, the darkness and the light, but even as it goes on, you have episodes like Call to Arms, Indiscretion. I know it's before, but with a lot of work with Mark Alimo, and never at any point I felt in a Kira episode was Kira secondary, or was Kira being played as, kind of, oh, doesn't she look great? No, because normally she's got a phaser in her hand. You're like, we're not here to sit down and we'll think, oh, how does the centerfold look this week? It's no, don't be on the business end of that weapon, because she's not going to hesitate. She's going to shoot you.
And the intendant was an
Oh,
opportunity for something else, but she was in complete control of that and chose that and owned her own sexuality, and actually was probably, guilty of sexual harassment all over the place. Certainly
oh,
she had slaves, and that was an issue too. But as a woman, she was definitely in control.
she was. You're right. She would fail every single workplace evaluation. But you're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, for the longest time, she got the job done. And she was able to do it in that very first episode, in that lovely, in the dress and everything. And, the ore was still getting processed and everything. I think, she's quite inspirational as a boss.
I don't think we could say that. She was horrible. She was horrible.
Actually, yeah, poor old Jennifer Sisko. She only appears to be killed.
I know. I know. That was the one storyline that I wish they had done, and they did it with Sid's character instead. I wish that we had found that Kira had been guilty of a lot of stuff happening on the station, because it was actually the intendant,
Yes, yes,
and
and of
Kira
course,
was
yeah.
locked up somewhere.
Oh, I like that, because of course we do get the intendant in the Prime universe in one episode when we get Barile back. Yeah, who's to say that the right one was sent back to the Mirror universe?
To
Uh,
say,
huh. We could, we skip to the end of the season. The one of those big battles. Like, why is the Defiant suddenly turning on the other Federation ships? What's going on here?
yeah, exactly.
Um, is there? I mean, I'm sure you've been asked this 100 times. Is there a favorite, memory from the 7 seasons, or even episode? And then I must ask, well, is there a converse? Is there a memory that you're just like not happy with that one?
Uh, when I think of favorite uh, memories, I think of ops scenes, because it would be the scene where the most of us would gather for
Hmm.
something, and the 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 endless chattering and catching up, and the joy of seeing each other, because we've all been off doing our own scenes or whatever. That kind of camaraderie, that kind of it's somewhat like the Marine thing. You are a part of something that no one else can understand. You've been through, we saw each other through our characters' trials and tribulations, and each other's trials and tribulations. Just what life was happening for everybody, we bore witness to. So I'd say that not only with the actors, but the crew as well, is one of my favorite memories. Um, a not favorite memory is being treated like, if I brought something up, if I said, can it be different? Can this experience be different? Being told, there are 10 more behind you. You'll be fired. You'll be gone. The feeling expendable and not heard, which I understand from talking to the women in the shows now, that is not the case. This is an old way of dealing with actors, I think, I hope. But certainly in Star Trek, it is no longer that way. But feeling expendable and feeling like there's you don't matter. Your humanity doesn't matter.
My God, that is something you would never wish on anyone.
No, it's really hard, and it was cultural. It wasn't Star Trek. It was the way sets were at the time. It was the way you controlled people, because it takes too much effort to listen and to think things through and to bring. It's better to say no. Always easier to say no.
There
Always
was
easier to say no and don't ask again because there are 10 more behind you who will put up with whatever you don't want to put up with.
I like obviously it goes without saying that's such a disrespectful approach, but also it's so short-sighted because what happens if you say that to someone who then goes, okay, bye, and you lose this amazing performance, you lose this amazing energy.
It happens. Not
Yeah,
that often because, we were at the time very well trained to understand don't lose this opportunity. If actors could gather around a campfire and tell scary ghost stories, it would be about the actors who dared to leave series and never worked again. It's always like that. It's usually not true, but in the ghost stories we tell each other, and they never worked again.
the all-encompassing terrible label of they're a bit difficult to work with.
Yes.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
you know,
Right.
and it becomes then this person's name comes in and like nope, line through that name, they're difficult to work with, and it is
That's it.
it's
That's it.
for daring to ask for a bathroom break, for daring to say, well, maybe we could do it differently. Um,
Correct.
Also, is what on the bathroom break thing. I think it's quite funny. So we've spoken to people who've had to deal with the wonderful, completely impractical Starfleet uniforms and closet. I have a wardrobe full of cosplay. That became my obsession during lockdown, was to start collecting these pieces. I'm in severe credit card debt, but um, there's so many of them were not designed with practicality in mind.
No.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, so like, bathroom break. Great. It's got to take about 40 minutes.
Well, when you think of it, these costumes have to be impressive. They have to be yesterday created.
Hmm.
So, and they have to be for the women, certainly very sexy. So and you've got to hide zippers because hopefully we've come up with something better than zippers by
Yeah.
then. So, it's not, I don't know how Bob Blackman did what he did, but yeah, especially the intendant. I needed quite a bit of help to go to the bathroom. I don't think my body was very happy for 7 years because it was a matter of just holding. Whatever you have to do, you better hold it.
So now you're going to tell me that some of the most intense Kira scenes, where maybe she's either breaking down or having another thing, actually
I
you're
have to
just like,
pee.
I really got. Oh my god, that's amazing. Uh, that is that I just particularly coming up toward the end, those scenes with Andy and Casey and everything, where it's all about the power of the piece and everything. It's like,
Oh my God.
oh,
Oh my God. I wish I had it, but in one of those scenes, Andy had to say, you have to cut off the head of the snake. That was the line. And it was, I think, like 2 in the morning, and I was gone. And when I'm gone, I'll laugh. And there was something about the intensity with which he said it. I couldn't, I could not stop. And that to me is so unprofessional. I don't like breaking up on set. I don't like losing it. I will allow myself once in a while, but it happened every time he said it. And there were probably 30 takes. And they filmed it and sent it to me. And in the first two times, I'm okay, all right, no. The fourth time, I'm apologizing to the crew and going, I know you want to go home. I'm so sorry. It's not going to happen. And again, and again and again. And it was, and he did it with the same, he didn't change his reading. It was like, nope, you're going to have to get through this. I am not changing what I'm doing. Not an iota. He said it exactly the same every single time. And it was just, I don't think I've ever lost it in my whole career like I lost it that night or
I
that morning.
I have to say, like, the fact that he didn't change the reading at all, I think there's blame on both sides here. I think he knew what he was doing. Oh, that is gas. I have to ask, the relationship between Kira and Odo is one of the most engaging, evolving, beautiful relationships, certainly that we had up to that point, and I think to a large extent still within the franchise, because in a way it makes complete sense where the two characters got to, and in a way I also didn't see it coming,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, we knew Odo had feelings, but I really felt that maybe they weren't, not romantically at least, returned on the other way. And then we get to, we're in James Darren's bar, and there's that beautiful scene. I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. So how, over the years, Rene Auberjonois, that was, I was crushed when I got the news. But what an amazing relationship to watch between the two of you grow. So, be honest, you hated him, didn't you?
I love Renee. That's still right here. I still think he's so vibrant to me. I still think he's going to just call me. I can hear his voice. And I got really, really close to him throughout the years. Uh, what There's so much that I admired him for. And one was he didn't give a shit.
Hmm.
He was who he was. Accept him, don't accept him. He never tried to make someone like him. He was who he was. I loved that about him. And he had a childlike quality and a curiosity and a fascination for small detail that I think is the epitome of how to get older in the world. I loved him. I didn't want it to be a romantic relationship because don't forget in the 90s, that was ubiquitous. It was like, will they, won't they? People who work together, but now they feel something for each other. Don't forget it was an issue in culture because women were suddenly in the workplace and this was the big fear. Oh my God, they're all going to have affairs together, and he might have a wife at home. This is, they won't be able to control themselves. So I really did want it to be a friendship for, cultural reasons. And yet I had the experience in my own life of my best friend, Sid, turning into a romantic relationship. So I went, okay, all right. And like Sid, I can imagine that that Odo and Kira could have gone to this deep, loving friendship where the understanding of Odo's needs and ethics and what he found important needed to be respected. So loving someone isn't always about having them.
That's actually, that is something that should be put on a t-shirt. Look, it's incredibly, words fail me. That is a perfect description. um I very much, I liked seeing the relationship as it was, particularly in season 7, but they were just always such a good pairing. And whenever one did something that upset the other, that hit harder than so much else that was going on. That, but there was two episodes that I think are very, they stand together are the necessary evil and things past, where we visit, back when Terok Nor was, Kira was still very much in her terrorist days. Oda was still the chief
Yes,
of security. Those two are, I think, they're a perfect companion piece because they both did things that a Starfleet officer would never do, but they
right,
lived it together.
right. And I remember for my character realizing that Odo judged me and judged me harshly at the end of, I think, Necessary Evil,
Mm.
and that would stay within our relationship. That was cool. That was a ribbon untied and left untied. Things weren't tied up neatly. Um, that was one of my favorite aspects of the show.
I like that. DS9. It's been said many times, but DS9 was the one where if TNG was a reset episode of the week, DS9 was the one that in season 4. Yeah, but do you remember that thing you did in season 2? You didn't think I forgave you for that, did you?
Right. Right. Which is why it's so different to watch it streaming. It's made for now to binge watch. It works way better than going, oh my God, I missed the third episode. Now what? What happened? I'm lost. Even
Mm.
if you're not really lost, you feel like you are. So part of you is questioning what you're experiencing.
Like absolutely, I remember, obviously it aired weekly, of course, but my dad at the time was working with the Irish equivalent of Blockbuster Video, and they used to release, you have 2 episodes on VHS. That's something we used to watch things on, children. um
Yeah.
and we would get, so I would have this massive collection. Of course, this thing was the size of a room, because these VHSs were not small. And so I would go back, and that was my initial version of streaming, is rewinding to the scene that I like. And
Oh
um
my God. We had special furniture to hold those things.
yes. uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. There were lots of accommodations to be made for your VHS collection. Isn't it amazing?
well, I am a big fan of streaming. Don't get me wrong, because it's handy, but I did like the DVDs as well. That was nice, because suddenly your collection that's 8 foot long becomes a CD, which is great.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so when are we getting Star Trek Kira?
If I had anything to do with it, I'd have lots of ideas, and I do look, I love that they used Michelle Yeoh. I love that uh there were admirals, I think they were admirals, older women who acted as mentors in the new iterations. I think the last ist that we have to deal with, certainly we're dealing with all of them. They're all, still with us, and we're learning more and more, but ageist stuff is still, certainly I feel it. Certainly I understand how my standing changed when I became what is considered an old woman. And I would love, as Star Trek examines all these important things for us, all the issues that we have, that we grapple with today, I think that is one that can be looked at.
I think you are right. You are absolutely correct. I loved in Michelle Yeoh's acceptance speech. She said, basically, don't let anyone tell you you're past your prime,
Right.
which I just thought was, it's such a powerful state on, one of the biggest stages in the world, receiving one of the biggest awards, proving, kind of, age means nothing. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face if you look at a number
Yeah.
and say, no, it's too big.
Yeah, we need everybody's contributions right now. And the fact that they would say that to her, to this powerhouse, yeah, if they say it to her, of course they're saying it to other people. I love that on Picard, I've only seen the first episode of the third season, but seeing Gates
Mm.
just look wonderful and be a strong presence, I was like, yes. So there's that. We're getting representation there, and I think it's a wonderful thing.
I think that's I think you're absolutely right. I think as of the recording of this, the fifth episode of the season has just been released, and it is wonderful to see your entire main cast is over 60, and it's fantastic because it is an exact example of what you're saying we should be aiming for, is that it doesn't need to be Star Trek 90210.
Right. Right. There's room for that too. There's
Sure.
there's room for Starfleet Academy, which I'm sure will come. But just with the way streaming is, who knows if it's going to remain the way it is, but there's that you can give it to older people, and they have things that will be interesting for young people. I'm very interested in intergenerational sharing. I think it's important for everyone. um Django and I do a podcast that is all about that. It's us coming at things from our where we are in our lives. Those are important discussions, I think.
I think so. And I think, like, with podcasting, with how accessible getting your voice out there has become, particularly since Star Trek, TNG, DS9, Voyager, and even Enterprise were on the air. It was a lot more difficult then to have open discussion, open examination of
Oh
you
yeah.
know workplace treatment for women, this expectation that's put on people, as you say as well, ageism. Whereas now we can hear what it felt like to be made to feel in any way less than, or what are you doing asking these questions? You shouldn't be asking these questions. At a convention in 2021 in London, Destination Star Trek, I was one of the many faces in the crowds. I went to your panel, and I really, I think I was among many whose eyes were opened by, I think somebody asked the question, like, how much did you get to write for your character? And you went, nothing. Yeah, we didn't get to write the scripts. And we were all like, but
No,
but surely, no, no. Um,
no, not at all. Now they have I understand that the actors have meetings at the beginning of the year to talk about arcs. Oh my God. Just to know what the arcs were going to be. It's fantastic. Look, all that said, the writing of DS9, for me, it's some of the best writing ever. Uh, it, I mean, look at the people that we had and what they've gone on to do. I'm a huge fan of Ron D. Moore's new show, For All Mankind. Amazing show. Have you seen it?
I've seen the first two episodes of it. I'm starting my watch of it actually now.
Yeah. Well, the first two episodes, I went, oh, this isn't for me. This is not my kind of show. And Django actually said, no, go back, keep watching, wait for it. And he was absolutely right. It's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. I enjoy it tremendously. But I mean, Ira, Stephen Bear, Rondi Moore, Renee Echeverria, just incredible, incredible. All of them,
Yeah,
all of them.
it was bonkers, the writing talent on DS9. And I think DS9 was a perfect storm. You had all of this amazing talent coming together. You had even of some of the crew, of course, starting on Emissary, had already done 5 years on TNG, so they cut their teeth a little bit, which was, I think, one of the reasons I think Emissary is one of the stronger pilot episodes across the franchise, because it didn't have, say, Next Generation. Well, we were kind of starting the franchise up again.
Oh,
Voyager, I think, is
yeah.
very strong as well.
Oh, yes.
Mm.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Um, a slight change of direction now for a second is that you and I are going to be guests at a convention in May, DN Icon in Philadelphia.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to meeting you. But for the people who are listening along today, what can we look forward to at this amazing convention?
You know, I was just I just filmed a little something for them about it. And I talked about the word engage, how important it is, what it means, engage. For us Star Trek people, it means there's an energy exchange. Something's happening. We're going somewhere. And I feel like this engagement between us all is a forward movement that we absolutely need to do. And here's my thought: we need to not expect it to go smoothly. Just like DS9, we came from it's multicultural and we don't get it and we don't understand. And we have to come together with curiosity and to realize that we all have unconscious bias and to see if we can become aware of those and what interesting conversations we can have. I'll tell you something that watching the Oscars this year, you spoke about Michelle Yeoh, and also seeing people from genre who had worked in genre most of their lives suddenly winning an Oscar. It wasn't this elitist. I hated watching the Oscars. It was like, what does this mean to me? It's
Mm.
nothing. It's this elitist thing that's political. I'm sure it's still political, but it felt opened up and it engaged me. And it made me go, I don't know what could happen. And I don't know where the next contribution is coming from. This is exciting. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to with this new way of looking at coming together. Let's be curious and see who has what to contribute
I
and
love
not
that.
expect it to go smoothly.
Oh yeah, yeah. All of human history has gone so smoothly up to date.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
this
right. So
this
we
will be
can
the
pretty
one
much
thing.
predict.
No, I'm super excited. I know the group Gaze in Space are just a wonderful, wonderful collection who have done so much for the community. And I've just some of the parties they throw. Dan Devey, who runs Gaze in Space, told me a story once that I think there was an event on that you arrived at, and were you handing out cookies to everyone?
Yes, I made cookies. It was in New York. So I was able to bake, which was something that I so wanted. I would love to do. Look, it's what I'd love to do at every single event if I didn't have to fly with baked goods. It's what I mean. It's sit down at my table. You are my family. It lets, no matter who you are, if you're having something to eat that you enjoy, you are open and vulnerable and human, just like me. Let's do that together. Let's have a molasses cookie together.
That sounds amazing, and I will absolutely take you up on the molasses cookie offer. But
When you come to LA, I'll do that. I also make a mean peanut butter cookie.
okay, I am so. When we finish recording this podcast, we're going to start just organize that, get the date in. Everyone who's been listening along is like, no, I want to know, I want to go too, because I'm sure everyone does. Um, on that, we're going to come up to the end of this interview now. I want to say thank you so much for your time, for your generosity. Thank you for Kira, just throughout
Thank
the
you.
years as well. So I have one last question that is
Mhm.
we ask of every single guest. It's a nice, easy question, no thought required. Nana Visitor, what does Star Trek mean to you?
I knew it. Um, it's, yeah, it's a mind-blowing question. It is knitted into the fabric of my very being. I don't think I go a day without saying the word Star Trek or writing them. It and in that fabric is this community that is a part of me now and hugely meaningful. And Star Trek is a place, it's like a chemistry set. What if we put hope? What if we put what we wished people could behave like? What if we put what we want to explore next all into this beaker? What do we get? What can we give? That's what it is to me.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you so much for your insight, for your wisdom. Thank you in advance for the cookies. Um, um, as we sign out now, obviously we know that you have this book coming. Your deadline is June, so hopefully we might see it this year hitting the shelves. Do you think?
I would expect so. I would expect so.
Okay, that will be amazing. And then we have, of course, Diversity and Inclusion Con, which is May 5th to 7th in Philadelphia. So hope to see everybody there. And the name of your podcast that you do with Django, where can people find that and what is that called?
It's called Sunday Dinner with Django El Sadig and a non-visitor. And my Instagram account, where I am only Mama Nana, I'm not that's that aspect of my personality, and I'm there for people. Is visit at Visitor Nana.
At Visitor Nana. Okay, thank you very much. What I'll do as well is I'll put links to, for example, the podcast, your Instagram in the description of this video as well, or video podcast that people can click on it. But once again, Mama Nana, thank you so much. You are a superstar and a hero, and I would probably follow you into battle any day. So thank you so much. To everyone who has been listening along, thank you so much. We will, of course, be back next week with another episode of The War Room. You are awesome. Make sure that you live long and prosper. And thank you very much.